Do you think anything will come of Democrat efforts to try to pack the courts or to try to have the judge in Florida removed or to retaliate in some way for what you've pointed out are a series of decisions that have gone conservatives' way?
Well, I think if they were able to win at the ballot box and gain the power in Congress and the presidency, they would definitely try those things. We've seen it tried in the past by Democrats in the past, and I think packing the court would be a huge mistake for this country. I mean, I think it's the quintessential example of if you don't like the outcome, then change the rules of the game and to get the outcome you want. And so for years, for decades really, liberals depended on, progressive Democrats depended on the court to do their dirty work. And now that they don't have that crutch to lean on, they're very upset. They're, playing catch up, I guess you might say. I think they would pack the court if they could. They would try to use every tool they could find to effectuate their radical agenda.
So one of the big questions about this convention and this election really is about policy differences. And there are entire events set up outside the convention to talk about policy. Nashville has attracted so many conservative refugees from blue states over the last 4 years because of policies in Tennessee and in Nashville, local and state policies that have made life more livable and free for people. Could you give us the Nashville formula or the Tennessee formula? What is it that wins?
Well, I think it's the freedom of choice to make the decisions, live your life the way you want to have the freedom to start small businesses, build your life free of government interference. And I think states like Tennessee really epitomize that: low taxes, low debt, low interference by government. That's what Americans are searching for, and we've seen lots of people come to our district, including Nashville, but across the rural parts of our district, we see lots of people moving in from all the liberal states: Illinois, California, New York. And that's positive. We certainly don't want them to change the character and nature of Tennessee, but we're glad to welcome them there to enjoy what we've created in Tennessee.
Do you think that President Trump could recreate that on a national level in a second term, given the challenge of high interest rates that he'd be coming in with and the overseas problems that Biden would be leaving him with? Can Trump do it?
I think he can. I've always been struck through my own business career and my observation of politics at how quickly a bad story can become a positive story. And it's really about changing the mindset of the American people and helping them understand the promise of what our republic and our democracy and our free enterprise system present for them. And so I think that a few basic positive policies, reducing regulation, getting some reasonable control over spending, stopping the woke agenda, the social policies that you see coming out of this administration, things like putting men into women's sports that are so destructive of the fabric of the country. And I think the American people have seen what President Biden represents, and they're ready for a change. And I think that we can see a quick turnaround for the country. Now, the longer fight is going to continue to be there, and we're going to have to stay that course once we get the course correction put in place, and that's where we'll see the real benefits for this country long term.
I have to ask you a couple more Tennessee questions, because Tennessee is a fascinating place, and in many ways it can help us look at the nation as a whole. So Tennessee is a very diverse state. From the Mississippi Basin in the west to the Appalachians in the east, you've got black communities and rural white communities, all kinds of people, new immigrant communities coming in, and yet Tennessee works very well, brings these people together. Can President Trump be a president for all Americans, or will we see continued division and driven by the left and by the media, of course, who try, but can he overcome that and bring people together?
Well, I hope so. I think there is a promising, positive message that comes from this president. There are some determined foes who believe in something different. The most common question I get from visitors to my office in Washington is, what is their agenda? What are they trying to accomplish? And sometimes it's hard to see it for anything else other than an attempt to tear down the country to its bedrock. And so that's disappointing. I hope that people will embrace the positive message that President Trump is trying to put forward of building this country back up. America is that shining city on a hill that President Reagan talked about 40 plus years ago, and we've got to live up to that expectation. That's why people want to come to this country, is because they understand what freedom and liberty brings and the promise that that brings to people all around the world. And it's interesting because people all around the world don't understand why America is trying to tear itself down. They see this country as the greatest promise for the future of the world, and we've got to live up to that expectation.
Now, most people don't think President Trump has deep roots in Tennessee, but he did put a portrait of Andrew Jackson in the Oval Office last time he was in the White House, and in many ways his first term was very Jacksonian. He has a Jacksonian personality, some of his policies. Do you think we're going to see a comeback of the Andrew Jackson Trump, or is this Trump going to be different? Is he sort of a second-term Reagan Trump? What kind of Donald Trump are we going to see? Is it a continuation of the first term in that sense?
I think the choice of J.D. Vance as his vice president gives you the answer to that question. He's a fighter. He's going to fight, and I think he's going to be very motivated to make the most of the next 4 years. I think he looks back at the first term and recognizes there were some missed opportunities. One of the reasons I ran for Congress, one of the reasons people in my district supported me is that they wanted someone in place to support the president and his positive agenda for America, and I think the president's going to hit the ground running and make the very most he can of the 4 years that hopefully the American people are going to give him to turn this country around and get it back on its feet and moving in the right direction.
So J.D. Vance just named this morning, Monday morning, that's when we're filming, Monday afternoon now, named as Trump's running mate. And he has taken a position on the war in Ukraine, which is, let's say, against further funding. He wants to see some kind of resolution there. And Congress, including the Republican members of the House, have largely gone along with funding for the Ukraine war. Do you see a change in policy coming about as a result of the J.D. Vance pick?
I do expect to see that, and I've voted against the extraordinary funding for the Ukrainian war because President Biden has failed to advance a coherent strategy for how we're going to achieve some sort of victory there. I think when you see President Trump come into office, and I think that will happen, I think you'll see him move quickly to try to get a good resolution for what's happening in Ukraine. I don't think that will be a surrender. I don't think he'll be ceding Ukraine to Russia. I think it'll be quite the opposite. But I think that President Putin will take note of President Trump quickly, and there'll be an amicable resolution there that will largely achieve the goals that I think most of us would have of preserving the territorial integrity of Ukraine and making sure that NATO moves forward in a powerful way and making sure that our NATO allies are stepping up to meet their responsibilities.